The whispers had turned into a deafening storm, shaking the very foundation of the royal family's reputation. This wasn't just gossip, it was a scandal of catastrophic proportions. Photos, videos, and undeniable proof of Hamdan's secret rendezvous at the hotel were plastered across every screen. Some called him a traitor, some questioned the integrity of the royal household, while others eagerly awaited one thing: his wife's response. And his wife? She wasn't silent. She was the storm itself. Her official statement had already gone public. "I once believed Hamdan was my entire world. I breathed for him, trusted him beyond reason. But he was nothing more than an illusion. A man like any other, faithless, deceitful. Now the world will witness what happens when a woman's pain turns into vengeance. This fire will not stop until everything is reduced to ashes." These words were now the most discussed, most feared, and most powerful statement circulating across the media. The royal family was drowning in humiliation, and there was no way to contain the disaster. When the news reached Hamdan, it was as if the ground beneath him had vanished. His phone was ringing incessantly, messages flooding in from every direction. His father had immediately summoned him to the royal court, while his personal guards struggled to keep the relentless media away from the hotel. But the worst moment came when his wife played her final, most venomous move. A call came through. Not from a journalist. Not from a lawyer. But from her. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. Her voice was calm. Too calm. And that terrified him more than anything. "This is only the beginning, Hamdan," she said, her tone dripping with quiet fury. "You think I've done my worst? No. I haven't even begun yet." The call ended, and now, the entire Arab world held its breath, waiting for the next, inevitable strike of this storm. Hamdan held the newspaper in his trembling hands, but he couldn't bring himself to read it. Every news channel was flashing his name, his betrayal, his disgrace. His phone was overflowing with messages and missed calls, but at this moment, none of it frightened him as much as the thought of facing his father. The royal court was silent, an eerie, suffocating silence. Sheikh Mohammed sat on his throne, his expression carved in stone, his eyes burning with disappointment. The air in the room was thick with tension, as if the very walls were waiting for the storm to break. And then it did. The moment Hamdan stepped inside, a thunderous voice echoed through the hall. "What is this?" Hamdan flinched. His lips parted, but no words came out. "You have disgraced us." Sheikh Mohammed's voice was colder than ice. "Do you have any idea what your reckless actions have done to this family?" Hamdan exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. "Baba, I can explain. There is nothing to explain." His father's voice cut through the air like a whip. "You betrayed your wife, and now she is hell-bent on destroying you. And worse, you have given her every reason to do so." Before Hamdan could respond, the sound of screeching tires outside made the entire court turn. A car had arrived. The doors of the palace swung open, and she walked in, his wife. She moved with an undeniable authority, her presence sending a wave of unease through the court. Her eyes burned with fury, but her composure was unnervingly controlled. In her hand, she carried a file, one that made Hamdan's stomach twist in dread. She stopped right in the center of the hall, standing before Sheikh Mohammed, her voice steady and powerful. "The decision is in your hands now, Sheikh Mohammed." She lifted the file slightly. "Either I get justice today, or I will reveal to the world what has been hidden until now." A deathly silence fell over the room. This was no longer just a family dispute, this had become a war, and the final verdict was yet to be made. The file in Hamdan's wife's hand had become the center of everyone's attention. Every person in the royal court knew that within those pages lay a storm so destructive that if unleashed, it could turn the royal family's honor to ashes. Sheikh Mohammed's gaze was piercing as he looked at her. His voice was calm, but his authority was undeniable. What is this? She stepped forward, her burning eyes locking onto Hamdan's for a long, cold moment before she placed the file on the table. These are the proofs that will expose his true face to the world. Her tone was sharp, unwavering. And not just this, there is more. I hold information that, if I choose to reveal it, could shake this palace to its very foundation. A murmur rippled through the court. Whispers filled the air. For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed Hamdan's face. Sheikh Mohammed let his fingers rest on the file for a moment before looking up at her. His voice, controlled yet firm, asked the inevitable question, "What do you want from me?" A bitter smile touched her lips as she met his gaze. The same thing every woman who has been betrayed wants: justice. Sheikh Mohammed's expression didn't change, but his voice turned colder. "And if justice is not given to you?" She took another step forward, standing even closer, her eyes now locked onto his with an intensity that made even the strongest men in the room uneasy. "Then I will do what no one has ever dared to do," she declared, her voice unwavering. "I will show the entire Arab world the truth that this family has tried so hard to bury." A bead of sweat formed on Hamdan's forehead. He knew, if she had come this far, she would not back down now. Silence swallowed the court, thick and suffocating. Now, the decision lay in Sheikh Mohammed's hands. Would he protect his son, or would he protect his honor? The weight of the decision hung in the air like an executioner's sword. Sheikh Mohammed's grip tightened on the armrest of his chair, his eyes scanning the court. The whispers had died down. Everyone was waiting for his verdict. Hamdan, standing a few feet away, felt his pulse hammering in his throat. He dared not speak. He knew that in this moment, nothing he said would matter. The only person with the power to stop this disaster was his father. Sheikh Mohammed exhaled slowly and, with a calmness that was more terrifying than rage, asked, "And what exactly does justice look like to you?" His wife didn't hesitate. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind too many times. "I want a divorce," she stated, her voice firm. "Not in secret. Not in silence. I want the world to know that I was wronged, that I was not the one at fault. I want my dignity restored publicly, just as it was publicly destroyed." Hamdan's stomach twisted. A public divorce? In front of the entire Arab world? It would be a humiliation unlike anything he had ever known. Sheikh Mohammed studied her for a long moment, then said, "And if I grant you this?" She lifted her chin slightly, her grip on the table tightening. "Then the file stays closed. No media leaks, no further damage. You will still lose a son's marriage. But you will not lose your family's honor." Hamdan's heart pounded. He turned toward his father, desperation creeping into his voice. "Baba, you can't let her." Enough. The single word from Sheikh Mohammed silenced him instantly. His father's gaze was unreadable as he turned back to his son's wife. "You ask for much." She met his gaze without fear. "I ask for what is fair." The court held its breath. Then Sheikh Mohammed made his decision. "You will have your divorce." Gasps filled the hall. Even Hamdan stumbled back slightly.